Recording in progress. So this is a meeting of the Norwich Board of Listers. It is now 3:03 p.m. And I will call the meeting to order. I am Cheryl Lindberg, a lister, chair of the Board of Listers, and over there is Ernie Ciccatelli, also a lister for the town of Norwich. The first item on our agenda is to review and approve the agenda. And I would like to discuss with Ernie the adding of two items, not very lengthy. I'd like to add an office update and put that in as 5A. And I'd like to add an E&O memo discussion to the select board as 7A. So with that, is there anything about the agenda, Ernie, that you would like to add or
No,
discuss?
I'd just like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
To approve the agenda as
Approve the agenda as amended.
okay, thank you. Approve as amended. I will second that motion. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and I'm an aye, so there is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is, are there any public comments for any items that are not on our agenda today? I do see others here. And if there's a comment that anyone would like to offer that is something not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Okay. Not seeing any. I'll report that as none. And we have Michael Adams and Tony Adams. Okay. And where we are, moving right along. So the next item on the agenda is a current use LV 314 grievance submitted by Watt Alexander on behalf of the McIndoe Farm. And so we are here to listen to the grievance request information, and that information will be taken in today, and we will have a deliberative session after our meeting on the information submitted. So with that, Watt, I can give you 10 minutes or less if you would like to give us your thoughts on your grievance, please.
Sure, thanks. It'll definitely be less than 10 minutes.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Ernie?
I turned up the volume. I'm sorry, the volume was down.
Okay. So I sent you a set of emails. My first one was mistaken regarding the applicable statutory guidance on how to value the parcel being removed. But this is a 2.72 acre parcel being removed from current use. It's been in current use since 2007, I think. And I had been under the impression, mistaken impression, that the old rules applied where it was not valued as a standalone parcel, but I understand that that's been amended and changed, and that was a mistake on my part. Even so, and recognizing that it should be appraised as a standalone parcel, I still believe that the fair market value assigned to it it exceeds what comparable transactions that I sent to you by email. And that the fair market value results in a valuation of $95,600 per acre, which is higher than the per acre valuation of similarly sized parcels that have been sold in the last 3 years, that range kind of more from the $25,000 to $69,000 per acre. So I'm really just asking that you all reduce the fair market value from the $260,027 that is on the LUCT form to something more in the range of actual comparables for similarly sized parcels of similar distance from the center of town in recent years. And those, I think, fall within more of the closer to that 69,000, below that $69,000 per acre. or a fair market value that would probably be below, based on that multiple, $185,000 for these 2.72 acres. And obviously, this is simply a land use change tax applying to empty acreage right now, and there will be a house built on it. Our family house will move up there when this is done, and we're going to be dealing with our property taxes then. But I think in terms of the land use change tax, it's my understanding that at least from the comparables I was able to find, the actual transacted value, or that I'm using as a stand-in for fair market value, has been lower than what this per acre valuation came out as. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Well, one thing that I want to be sure that you understand when we do the valuation is that a parcel has a 2-acre site assessment in Vermont. Every standalone parcel has that. And with that, the first acre has the greatest value, and the second acre in our system, as it is today, with still the 2016 values, has a per acre value of 145. I'm sorry, $4,500. Sorry. So what we did in our calculation, Watt, was to look at what your neighborhood area has for their first acre in the system and put in that number for the first acre. And then any additional acres are put in the valuation at 4,500 per acre, or any portion of it. So in the 0.72 case, it would be 0.72 times the $4,500 amount. So that's the development of the valuation that we come up with. And as you may have seen on the form, when we enter that number in, it divides by the CLA,
Right.
which boosts it to the higher number. And that is not anything we have control of in responding to the state. We are only able to put in the standalone parcel information valuation that we would have in our records for a parcel in that part of Norwich, that neighborhood that has, like I say, that first acre entered as some amount. And it varies throughout the town. You know, obviously there's more valuable acreage downtown, they say, in Norwich. For the first acre might be $210,000 an acre for the first acre. And, you know, out further, it could be 160,000 for the first acre, or whatever, 120,000 for that first acre. But all the additional acres are entered initially in at 4,500.
Now, I think I understand the formula you're talking about, and I understand the calculation you're talking about. I guess to me, the question really comes down to the definition of fair market value on that form. And if that definition of fair market value is really fair market value is this formula divided by the CLA, that fair market value overrides comparable fair market value, then that's, if that's really the case, then it sounds like that's outside of your authority. If fair market value is supposed to be fair market value of transacted values of similarly situated acreage, then I do think that becomes a question of, I don't know if there's authority to depart from that form or to alter the initial formula to come out with a fair market value that reflects transacted value. But my understanding has always been that fair market value is as close to transacted value of actual similarly situated acreage as possible. And because that is the definition of fair market. So I don't know what your authority is in this situation to be able to depart downward in that initial
Right.
calculation to result in a fair market value that reflects comparables, transacted comparables. But I do think these are the appropriate transacted comparables.
Okay.
And so I would just raise that as that's my understanding of fair market value. That would be that was how I was trained and raised, that fair market value meant transactions, arm's length transactions,
Sure.
primarily. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm coming from. I understand that's not really how I see how the calculation doesn't really approach it that way, but I
Yeah.
think the end result ought to be reflecting fair market value as a market defined number rather than as a formula defined number, understanding the CLA, understanding the reappraisal questions there. So
Right.
so I leave that to you all to let me know
Yeah.
what you think your authority is and whether you think this is an appropriate departure. And if you really don't think it's an appropriate departure, it sounds like that might be something that I should be thinking of appealing differently. But let me know.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your attention to this.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just to state it, that we do use we're using the 2016 land values in the system because nothing has changed with regard to reappraisal of the town of Norwich at this time.
Right. So even that first acre is a 2016 valuation of that first
Yes,
acre.
that would
Yeah.
be correct. So
Yeah.
we anticipate new land tables coming out of the reappraisal. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and new buildings because the parcels in Norwich with structures are selling, you know, not quite double today as they did in 21, 22, but they're still selling, heavily over the assessments we have in our grand list.
Right. And
Yeah.
so, and in general, regardless of the CLA, anytime there's a transaction, the fair market value of a property is changed to that transacted value rather than what the 2016 valuation divided by the CLA would generate, right? Or do you absolutely not update the grand list at all for transactions from 2016 forward?
We have not, Watt. The only changes that are being made to the grand list since the last townwide reappraisal are those things that are legally required, like changes of property ownership, division of property, subdivision that occurs, or the sale of something, a subdivision that somebody has, a structure that's being built through a permit. So the zoning permits that are issued, we track those and we modify the grand list for those transactions that are taking place and keeping up with a piece of land that was vacant to a piece of land that's now improved with a structure started. So
Right.
that's what
So
we've
even a
tracked.
sale wouldn't change the grand list.
We cannot sales chase. It is against Vermont law to sales chase. So
Oh,
we can't, all those houses that sold for double their assessment in our town, we cannot change that assessment to the sale price.
well. Okay, that's an interesting concept of fair market value. I guess I learned something there. Okay. Well, thanks. I
Okay,
appreciate your time.
we
And
will we thank you, Watt, and we will deliberate later on after our meeting and we will send you a letter. Promise
understood.
that.
Okay.
Okay. All
Thank you.
right. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Yeah, that was reasonable. Great. Okay, so that
Well,
is that.
I would have.
Oh yeah, he's definitely, and he's on vacation, so he wants to get back to vacation. Um, with that said, the next item is the reappraisal update. What I can offer to us at the moment, Ernie, is that I'm working on this meeting that we have discussed with KRT and the town manager for September 9th. I haven't a time yet for that meeting. I've asked today for as a follow-up, what time would be good. I don't know the town manager's schedule on that day. I don't know anybody's, but I just wanted to alert you that that would be our chance to go over, where the reappraisal is, what the plan for the rest of the reappraisal is, how we go about getting, perhaps more interior inspections done, anything that we have a list of things, the photos that are just,
Yep.
yeah, so I find that, I will find that to be a really important meeting for us to be at, and obviously I have to warn it and record it. So, just if you can keep that date in mind, that was worked out as our,
What's the date again?
the 9th of September,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
and that is a Monday, just so I can identify that as well. and whether or not it's a morning meeting or an afternoon meeting. I don't know if you have any preference on that topic right at the moment. It would
What day
be,
is it? What day of the week is it?
it's a Monday.
Monday.
So, you know, they may wish to come up and then we spend some time together and maybe we get a lunch and sit down and talk about stuff. I just don't know yet what that
Okay.
might look like. So I just want to get your attention on that date and I've written to them today, so I hope to hear back.
Okay.
Get started on that, but we'll want to come up with, you know, like an agenda of items that we want to go over with them and get up to speed on. So that's my hope on that. All right, so next on the agenda is an office update, and I thought this would be helpful because it would bring you up to speed on some things that I may not be aware of, Ernie, and so one of the office updates is that, you know, our 411 did get submitted. I did get that done, so that is the 411 comes with the grand list, and it's got to be submitted to the state by a deadline. So I have done that, and I did it right after we lodged the grand list, so that there's the correct one has been sent, and
Okay.
any changes to that, which we'll discuss in a little bit later, will be documented as subsequent changes to anything to the grand list. The next thing I wanted to mention, Ernie, is the VALA conference, the Vermont Assessor and Listers Association conference is at Lake Maury. It's really close by. It's a great event to network and get educated and learn stuff. And since it's so close to us, I thought I would keep that on your horizon as well, because I found it very valuable.
When is
last
the
year.
meeting?
September 5th and 6th. So the 5th is typically a dinner event. And there's probably conversation and networking and what have you. It's not a full day of educational courses and whatever is presented. The 6th is a Friday, and that would be the day where we can attend workshops and meet people and what have you. And the town covers our attendance to that in our budget. So I just think it's helpful to keep those opportunities again on our calendar. And it's so close by this time. Last year I went, it was Killington, I'm pretty sure. I drove over for the day and it was really good. That's how I got networked and how I ended up coming up with an idea of having us find someone to help us with our office stuff, and then reached out to some people and then we came up with Amanda. Amanda was one of the 3 people that applied for helping our office. So that was helpful. In terms of work to be done that's important, there's in Vermont Pi, which is the new program we have to use in towns. The sales verifications haven't been started yet. Amanda and I she's in tomorrow. I thought we might start tackling that.
How many of the sales on?
Well, there's 56 last I looked, but those are the ones where we have to, you know, validate whether they were an arm's length transaction or not. And
how do we do that besides PTTOs?
I think we do that by knowledge as well. In other words, for us, it might be clear that, you know, John Doe and Mary Smith are actually brother and sister in a transaction, though there's not the same last name, but we know that they're brother and sister, so the transaction wouldn't be looked at as valid, right? So we're looking for that arm's length, unrelated parties, and a transaction of that nature.
Yep.
So that's the kind of stuff we'll look for going through those sales. Happy to sit with you and do some of those after we find out what our future may be with the article that's on the informational town article on the warning. So that's one of the things in the office that we need to do. There's as with any grant list that goes out, the bills have gone out, the tax bills went out. Address changes,
Of course.
address changes are starting to come
I
in.
was so thrilled to see mine.
You and many others were very thrilled. There's been a lot of people contacting the office and the finance office about what took place, what went on. And it's really the education.
People all voted for an expensive school system.
It's the education tax rates that have caused the increase in the tax bill. So the education rates and the fact that we need to do a reappraisal are all part of what is out there with regard to the increases. Unfortunately, some people think they can appeal their tax bill, but there isn't a mechanism to do that. So they needed to have aggrieve their assessment if they were aware that there was a huge tax bill coming. They may have wanted to grieve their assessment, but they've missed that opportunity. So that's been going on.
We'll get blamed for that.
Well, I've been directing people to their state legislative elected officials and pointing to my. Yeah, they're the same assessments as last year, and they weren't complaining last year. So with that said, I do think that there's a huge difference, but you can only explain so much, and then people have to make their minds up as to who they want to point the finger at. I think I've mentioned to you, I'm going to be working remotely from August 15th through the 22nd. Although the 22nd, I probably won't be working much other than in the layover at the airport or whatever, because I'll be flying back that day. But I will be available when I'm away. But you're free to help cover the office. That would be great.
I'm so thrilled.
I know, Ernie. The other thing I was going to ask you, if you think it might be helpful to have Amanda come in any of those Thursdays. There's 2 Thursdays where she normally would be here. The question might be, is she available? Is it worth her coming down for 4 hours on each of those Thursdays to help field any questions or whatever? She does not have email access, but
yeah, I don't know yet. I mean,
yeah,
my schedule is right now mostly under the control of other people.
Yep.
And that's all I can say.
Yeah.
I mean, even today was, I had an opportunity to take, and I had to make sure that they understood I had to leave early.
Yeah.
And
okay.
luckily, we were able to get the stuff done that we had to do.
Okay, good. Well, I'm just reminding you of it because it starts next Thursday and goes to the following Thursday. And so all should be well. And we have a request from the town clerk on getting together for the Board of Abatement and the Board of Civil Authority. So you responded to that email at this point. Great. Okay.
Anyways, I got to return. That's that vote.
Oh, yeah.
When you can appear.
Yes, correct. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm
and
sure I haven't missed anything.
Yeah. I will tell you, the office of the Tracy Hall has changed the phone system. There has been some difficulties getting phone calls from outside, even though they're calling in on the regular number. And there's now been a greater effort to help correct the phone system situation. So that's awesome, because we don't know if someone's trying to reach us and they're calling in and getting a busy signal. So anything else about the office that?
No, nothing I can think of.
Okay, some organizing needs to be done. I've got that little tub over there of things that Amanda and I hopefully will get organized and filed away and get sort of tidied up for.
Do you know if anyone has taken out papers to get elected for the replacement lister?
I do not know if that anybody has done that, because the ballots are available, so they would have had to have done that before the ballots were prepared, and there's nobody's name for lister, trustee of public funds, or cemetery commissioner, to my knowledge, that they filed for any of those open positions. But it could be a cemetery commissioner did, but no lister, no trustee of public funds. So I think after everything is done, and we're going to go into that next, we should start, getting ourselves positioned to ask people to come in and give it a try. So that'd be my hope.
Okay, I was gonna also, I didn't realize this until we're underway. I was gonna suggest that, the people that are here
Yep.
are here for the Norwich boundary line, I assume, Norwich Sharon boundary line discussion. And maybe we should do that so they don't have to sit.
We're almost there. We got one
Well-
more thing and we're there.
Oh, I thought you wanted to discuss the presentation stuff at length.
No, there's not a lot I want to say about the next agenda item. It is the informational hearing, August 11th, so we can move to that.
Okay,
And with that, I would just say that I posted a couple of listserv
I
posts,
saw.
and I think that's my message for Sunday for that meeting. And you should be there.
Well, we could, I have funeral
Okay.
on Saturday in Massachusetts of a good friend's father.
Okay,
And that person was here has been there for me over the Ethan issue, so,
okay,
you know, I would like not to have to rush back from the area
Uh-huh.
down there. So,
all right. Well, that's good.
I'd like at least to be able to feel things out and when I get there and decide what I'm gonna do.
Okay. Okay, you're familiar with the timetable on that hearing. It's at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you know, coming back and, you know, and even getting back at 3, depending, you know, like I said, that when we had Ethan's burial the last month.
Yeah.
And so we'll go, he hung around for a day, which was really nice.
Okay. Well, I will be there. Clearly, I feel it's important.
Oh, yeah,
It's a very
absolutely.
important item that we need to be there to answer questions. I don't know what it's like. I've talked with the town clerk and,
Also, my acerbic wit might not be the most appropriate thing there, that anyways.
well, you know how to behave.
No, I don't.
But I
That's
think
a myth.
in talking with the town clerk, she's got an agenda prepared. She's reflecting a 4 p.m. adjournment, which I mean, it's an hour. It may be shorter, it may be longer, but I think they're projecting that for that one article. That's the only thing that's there to discuss. It should be a good, hour might
Yeah.
be the max. So we'll expect that to be the situation. So I may see you there and I may not. Well, it's here in Tracy Hall. That starts at 3.
Right.
And it's on Zoom. So
Right.
it has to be done. Hey. That's that. Nothing else, right?
No,
Okay, Norwich Sharon boundary line. I put this on the agenda to discuss with you what the progress is on this. And I pulled together the documents that you and I have talked about in the past, and the documents and the emails and all that have been collected with that. And I put a packet together, I don't know, maybe 12 pages or something that's
Yeah.
gone to the select board chair and the
Did it include- did it-
town manager in a memo saying that please put this on a future agenda of the select board.
okay, it hasn't been put up on the agenda yet.
No,
Okay,
and since,
did you include the town charter?
no,
Okay, because that's important, because that's the original boundaries.
well, let's get that
I
before you,
brought my copy.
Okay,
Of
excellent.
the thing that was sent to me by the Secretary of State's office.
okay, this town charter, okay. Because that would be good to add, and certainly my request to the select board chair is that since I won't be available the 14th as easily, could we be on the meeting of the 28th agenda? And the thought was, well, I think we've got a pretty full agenda for the 14th already anyway, so
Yeah.
it might be best to go on the agenda for August 28th. So I think there's agreement with that idea, and again, you should be able to join in on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I've spoken to the Secretary of State's office. I don't really know where the I was advised by the Secretary of State's office that, first of all, any changes in boundaries have to be, adjudicated. And, and they would be recorded at the Secretary of State's office if they were being adjudicated. If they haven't been adjudicated, well, that's a problem unless the changes were approved by the legislature. And I'm not quite sure where I haven't yet found the authorizations for both of those two statements, other than, a state official provided it to me right now. And like I said before, the Secretary of State's office said there are no adjudications about the boundary line between Norwich and Sharon.
Okay.
Ever. So
Okay.
that means there's been no changes in theory since the boundary line was laid out in 1761.
Okay.
That's the theory.
Okay.
And, right now I'm going on by what the Secretary of State's office said.
Okay. Well, I should go over with you what I have submitted so far, and I copied you, I'm sure, on the email when I sent it in.
I saw it,
Yeah.
But I mean,
And
I kind of didn't understand what
this discussion has gone on since 2004, is my recollection of some of the oldest emails and
I've got that.
Yeah.
I've got that with me right now.
okay, good. So
But
this is
the
a
thing is, I
long,
didn't understand, what I still don't understand is why people pursued it that way. Because it's not legal. It's not the way you do things,
Right.
according to the Secretary of State's office. And I would imagine they should know what they're talking about.
right. And as I have said, and I will say at this meeting, because we have interested parties involved, I have no care as to how this gets resolved. When I found out in 2023 that this matter has gone back to 20 years ago, and it never got
Well, it's gone
resolved.
back a whole lot longer.
And it's probably got longer than that I would like this resolved. My goal is to get this resolved. And I have no skin in this game. I just want it to be resolved. And hopefully that will happen with the item getting on the select board agenda.
Right. I mean, the select board's, in the end, what's gonna have to happen is both towns are gonna have a survey, are gonna have to have surveyors. Both of them are gonna have to, if they, want, and then the state's gonna get involved if they don't come to an agreement, and so on and so forth.
Right. Well, I think the initial steps haven't even been taken. The initial step is, let's get both select boards together. Let's talk about it.
Right.
I mean, that hasn't even happened. It's been at our meeting, select board meeting, and it dead ended. So that just isn't a sufficient handling of the matter. And I know that there are, varying opinions on the select board as to how to resolve this. But again, it isn't in our authority to change a boundary line for Norwich. So that's where we leave it. And I know that the Adams members are here. Would anybody like to be recognized?
Yes, Cheryl, this is Tony Adams, if I could be recognized.
Okay, sir, Tony.
Quick question on your reference to 2004. What are you referring to with that?
I'm referring to information that was in the records of the Lister's office here, where memos were written and work was done to determine, well, to document that there was an issue with the boundary line, and that it was not clarity to not only the Norwich Sharon boundary line, but the Norwich Thetford and the Norwich, what was the other one? Sharon Thetford.
There's only 3 boundary
Right,
lines. There's other ones in water.
Okay, so that to that point, Tony, it's been something that's been made aware to the listers, and it dates back to at least 2004.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like that was a general issue, not with respect to any specific property. So thank you for that.
I would say that there were some property owners at the time that were bringing this up to the Board of Listers back in 2004 to 2007, and that the Board of Listers wrote some documents to the select board about resolving the boundary line between the two towns, and it's Never went anywhere.
Okay, okay. Next question I have for you is it your understanding that there is a dispute with respect to the property line along our family's properties? Or is it your understanding that the two towns are in agreement on what the property line is?
To be with your specific parcel?
Yep. Yep. And I say that because our interpretation of the February 14, 2024 Select Board meeting minutes indicates that they unanimously agreed that the town line lies to the east of our parcels. So I don't understand the references earlier in your conversation to adjudication. It seems like there's agreement here between the two towns. So there doesn't need to be involvement of the Secretary of State at this time.
So
May I speak to that?
yeah, but go ahead, Ernie, if you want to.
When I spoke to the Secretary of State's office.
Take your hand down.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I think it was sometime late last fall. They said that a boundary line change between towns, it doesn't take place unless there is what they call, he kept on referring to as an adjudication, of which they would have a record, and that there was no record of any adjudications of boundary line between Norwich and Sharon at any time.
So what we are saying to that point, Tony, is that in looking at what our prior contract assessor saw as a boundary line for Norwich and what he saw as a boundary line from the Sharon side were two different lines, and they're not the same line all the way along the border between Norwich and Sharon. There isn't just one parcel affected by this boundary line difference. There's all of the parcels along the Norwich side would be affected. So if
Cheryl and Ernie, we're asking you guys to address the properties that our family owns. I'm not aware of any other property owners along the boundary line who have requested your assistance in this matter. And it's my understanding that our survey takes precedence over any maps that you and Sharon may have. We're aware that the footnotes of your maps say subject to error, not for legal use, yada, yada. Our survey actually has a higher legal authority than the maps to which you refer. So we have deeds, we have maps, and we have property transfer tax returns that indicate what we're saying is the case. So part of our bewilderment here is, where is this problem coming from your perspective? If everyone is in agreement on the select board, and the listers in Sharon agree, and the deeds, the surveys, and the property transfer tax returns all agree, then we really don't know where your problem is coming from.
Well, I will take this first of all, Tony, as I have said to you, the action in the select board minutes was a recommendation. It was not a directive. It was a recommendation, and we do not believe that that recommendation is an accurate reflection of proper authority to make a change, because the statutes state what the proper authority to change a boundary line is, and it is not a private select board meeting, not involving any listers, never inviting us to the meeting, and dealing with it at 10:15 at night, where there was no opportunity to weigh in and correct what they were suggesting or discussing, results in minutes that have any authority for us to do anything. And all of what has been suggested and recommended in those minutes None of that has been done because you've never received an adjusted tax bill, and you won't because there's no authority for the finance office to adjust a tax bill. So, and none of that has occurred. And to that point, I just want to say that I've reacted to those minutes and offered the board corrective information, and that's why it's going to come back to the select board. Now, Ernie, go ahead if you had something to say.
Well, the simple thing is that if the state has not got a record of an adjudicated boundary line change, and if the Secretary of State's office does not have it, then it doesn't exist. And so it's simply that boundary line. Technically, unless there's something else out there that I haven't found or that the Secretary of State's office has found, which is unlikely because their job is to keep all the records, is that the original boundary line, as it was laid out in 1761, is the boundary line. And the towns don't have the right to just simply change them when they feel like it. There's still a process they have to go through, which has not been gone through. If they do agree to change them, they can't agree to change them, but then they have to go through a process, which is no record of that process having taken place.
All right. And according to what we know, Tony, it's a straight line. You know, that's what was set up long ago. We've not been given any changes to that boundary line. So in order to change your parcel to something else, we have to move that boundary line over all the way along the town of Norwich, not just for any one parcel. So if it's a straight line, and again, we can discuss whether it is or isn't, but that's all the knowledge we have. Everything we look at shows a straight line. That is how we are. And so Sharon's reflection of the boundary line is a straight line, but it's what, 10 feet, or I don't know what the distance is between what we show as the boundary line and what they show as the boundary line. But theirs is a straight line, and theirs goes parallel to ours that we show.
Quick question, if I may.
Yes.
How many sides does the state of Colorado have?
Well, I don't study Colorado.
I'll give you a hint. It's not 4. The number of sides that Colorado has, which was laid out over a century after the towns in the upper Connecticut River Valley, the number of sides that Colorado has is 697.
Okay.
So we don't agree that, this has to be a straight line, number one. And number two, we have a survey that was duly filed and is the most accurate map of the town line in our area. So we do not understand why you guys don't just adopt that instead of another map which you're using, which is less accurate than ours, and be done with it. We're not talking about the whole town line. We're talking about the area in our vicinity, and our survey is the best survey there is. You're now saying that James Adams owns over 10 acres in Norwich, which is absolutely preposterous. If you look at his deed, and if you look at his survey, it is very clear what he owns. And it's nowhere near 10 acres. So we encourage you, we implore you, please look at the surveys, use that as a basis for, your approach.
So I appreciate your thoughts, and I've done a lot of work on this, and I've had long conversations with you. There is a question that I do have that perhaps you can help me answer, and that is, in 2007, the change to the acreage occurred, and it went based on new maps. There was a change to this parcel from 2.4 to 10.4 acres. And there was a report that I saw that showed that there was a grievance filed by, I believe, you, and yet I can't find anywhere the result of the grievances for anybody that year. I've looked through the computer. I cannot find any grievance decisions, but what I can see is that in the next grand list, the acreage was still at 10.4 acres. So in the 2008 final grand list, it was still 10.4 acres. So my assumption, which I don't want to make, but that's all I can do, is that the change to 10.4 acres in 2007, if there was a grievance, it was not changed. It was, the grievance would have been denied or whatever. I don't know what the grievance was about, but it was required for them to tell you and a whole group of other people that changes had been made to their parcels, which is done every year. So I don't know if you have any information in 2007 that would help with that piece.
No, I do not, Cheryl, is the answer. I checked my emails and I don't have anything for you on that.
Okay.
My recollection is that having owned the property myself from 1999 until this period, 2007, Norwich, out of the blue, it went for a land grab when, said that it was more acreage in Norwich than what the survey said. And at the time I squawked, but that's all I recall. That's all I recall. I don't have any written records beyond what you have, it sounds like.
Okay. All right. Well, it would have,
in other words, when I bought the property in 1999 from Charles G. Davis Jr., it was 2.4 acres in Norwich. And so this whole thing, is coming from Norwich, and it's because Norwich does not follow the survey, which our understanding, and having talked to legal counsel, it is the survey that has legal precedence over all the other maps that we're discussing here today.
If I may, Cheryl, this is Mike Adams.
Hi, Mike. Yes, Mike.
I mean, just listening to that exchange, which was informative, it sounds like Norwich tried to change the town line in 2007 unilaterally and has been taxing accordingly ever since. And that was the thing that didn't get appropriately approved by the two towns and the Secretary of State and the whole 9 yards since 1761. So actually, it sounds very much like this is a problem created by Norwich, by your predecessors. I know that you were not there. And probably because the amounts of money involved for people involved in current use are de minimis. It appears that it somehow, in the midst of time, Norwich succeeded in the land grab, the unilateral land grab. And now we're trying to resolve our property because our mother owned the property. She sold part of it to my son, and then she's trying to dispose of the rest of the property that on the other side of the road. And as you may know, from having spoken to the real estate agent, he won't list the property because of this dispute. So our 81-year-old mother now is worried sick that she's got this property, which nothing can be done with because of this issue. And honestly, just listening to that, it sounds like the issue was created by Norwich in 2007. And you yourselves have stated that can't be done. You can't unilaterally change the boundary. So I would encourage you in your discussions with the select board, and if it's going to be on the select board hearing on the 28th of August, I will be there. As you may know, we have already filed an appeal to the BCA because you denied the grievance, and we discussed that that's what we would do. So we've done that because that's part of the process too. We're all trying to figure out how we can resolve this. I find it difficult to believe that Norwich really wants to open up the whole property line and go through that process, which would result, as far as we're concerned, in it being corrected in our favor. But if the select board's going to hear from you on the 28th, I'll plan on being there. And the BCA by then will probably I don't know. Technically, it doesn't have to have had its first meeting by then because the process gives 44 days, but maybe it will have been constituted. I look forward to seeing you there too. We're just trying to resolve this, but honestly, I just had the light bulb went on for me listening to that exchange that, as you said, in 2004, it went from 2.4 acres to 10.4 acres, and who knows what about the rest of the boundary line. And that sounds like a unilateral change that Norwich did. And as for the underlying facts of property lines from 1761, I'm not sure that that's the, I mean, that's kind of crazy that somehow needs to be adjudicated for the whole boundary line when all we're looking at, all the only people talking about this is us, and it should be resolvable without all of this extensive and expensive and time consuming and worrisome process for everybody. But okay, I've said my piece and I just offer that to you. I hope that you can take that on board as maybe in 2007 what Norwich did, people way before your time, maybe what they did wasn't exactly according to procedure either. And maybe we should go back to the status quo antebellum of 2006. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you.
I just want to say.
Yeah,
I want to ask a question.
okay.
Do the deeds going back before, let's say a couple of owners before, let's 40, 50 years ago, does any deeds actually refer to as part of the meets and bounds, the town boundaries? It might say for example, what I'm thinking of is, does it simply say that the land, whatever acreage it says total, is in both towns, or does it actually say, delineate, the meets and bounds, saying, it starts at this point, goes along and returns, and at some point there, in that one parcel that's in Sharon incorporates the town boundary, and then the same in reverse for Norwich, or
we have Ernie, we have which we provided in our appeal, and which I'm sure Cheryl has seen. We have
No, I haven't.
a 1990 survey. I brought it with me. I'm sorry. I believe that prior to my engagement that you had seen the survey, but we have the 1990 survey, which, I mean, it's a legal document in the state of Vermont, and it shows where the town boundary is. And it cuts through the property. It does cut through the property. That's odd. Why way back when did somebody, but I think it's because the property cuts across the road, and it was, the property is probably, the road's not a straight line, as you know. and it's a funny road where it starts in Norwich and it dead ends in Sharon, much as in the next valley. We have the same thing on our other, the continuation of the family property on Sugar House Road, leaving Beaver Meadow. It starts in Norwich and dead ends in Sharon. Okay. And the town line is in it's just in a random, as far as anybody out there, it's a random location for that. And the properties must have been, people claimed land and whatever, settled it in different ways over the centuries. But it's not, it's never been like, you bought your land and one side of your property line was the town boundary. That just doesn't seem to be at all to have ever been the case. So I'm sorry, Cheryl, I'm sorry you don't have a copy of the survey, because obviously we think that's dispositive.
No, I meant I don't have
a couple of times now, Cheryl.
I didn't say I didn't have a copy of the survey. I said I hadn't seen a copy of your appeal.
Oh, sorry. Well, the appeal was filed with the town clerk Monday.
Right. I understand that you have done that. I have not seen that which you submitted. That's what I was referring to.
Okay. Sorry.
Survey.
Sorry.
Well,
we had 14 days. The 14 days are up today, so it was submitted Monday.
Tomorrow. Yeah, it's either today or tomorrow. Because there's other people that we sent letters to. With that said, I know that I recall this 2007 change as being, the reason for it was the tax maps new tax maps. That's what I recall being the reason for the change to your parcel. So again, if there, it's peculiar to me that 2007 is the 1 year in the records in this office do not seem to be complete. I've got, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. We got all those years, and 2007 is lacking. And I just don't know why. I'm trying to look back and think, what happened in '07? I was here, but I wasn't a lister. But I'm trying to figure out why
So
those records.
Cheryl, if I may, that concurs with my vague recollection as well. There was a digitization of sorts of the Norwich tax maps, which resulted in this land grab, so-called, right? And that what we are what we are calling it now is a unilateral land grab from the status prior to that, and for decades and for centuries prior to that. It was not done with the agreement of anybody, let alone us, let alone the town of Sharon.
Well, I just can't find enough information with regard to that change. Like I can find changes that were done in the other years. There's the letters that went out. There's the responses the listers made. I can't
Also,
find
guys, I apologize for perhaps saying this again, but I really want to emphasize that if it really comes down to it and people start to, compare maps in a court of law, it is the survey that was done by a qualified surveyor in the state of Vermont that was duly filed that has precedence over these new digital tax maps that you guys are using, as you know, at the bottom of which has this disclaimer that they are not for commercial purposes. Don't trust these maps, it says in the disclaimer.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So that is, taking the frustration level and compounding it even higher, because we have a survey, we have deeds. Our survey is very clear in this regard, in this area. Please look at it. Please refer to the surveys and the deeds. When you tax or not tax, both sides of this family, please.
Yes.
Your tax map is not accurate. If you look at this part of the town line, our survey is the most accurate survey that anyone on this planet possesses.
Okay.
And if you want to open up the entire town line, which we think is a crazy idea, that's going to involve hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of surveying work on both sides of the town line, take years to accomplish, and it all for what? To prove that in 1761, the guys, with the barely any training and the cold hands in the dead of winter were able to carve a straight line across the town? That doesn't make any sense.
Just so you know, that's not actually how they describe it. And it just like in a deed, the charter is very similar to the way the land is described, just about exactly the same way as it's described in a deed. If you notice in a deed, the metes and bounds are written out, and then they will refer to a map as a secondary a source of the boundaries. But the fact is what matters is what deeds say. So if your deed says, it just says the metes and bounds, and it just says what town it's located in or something like that, or if it's located in both towns, something like that. The words are what are going to matter, and the words are what the surveyor has to match up his map to, not the other way around. Now, I'm not saying you're wrong about that your map is accurate. I mean, what your surveyor did is accurate or anything like that. It probably is accurate. But if the town line is not firmly, well, first of all, the land you buy, for the purposes of simply buying it, it doesn't matter what town it's in. It's especially land that's been, as you said correctly, it's been subdivided and added to and all that sort of stuff and altered over centuries, several centuries. But one question I have is, which town is, in which town's land records are your deeds for this land in?
Both,
Sharon or
both,
Norwich?
both.
Okay, because um, that's what for your purposes, all it really matters.
And excuse me, let me give you a longer answer than that, Ernie, if I may. Let me give you a longer answer.
Okay, I'm listening.
The deeds and the surveys are registered in both towns because on the west side of Chapel Hill Road, there is 2.4 acres in Norwich. And above and beyond that, there's about 42 acres or so in Sharon. And so the deeds, the surveys, they all have reference to both of the towns. But if you look at the deed and if you look at the survey, they cross-reference each other, and they're very clear that how much acreage we have in each town. And so, you know, please read those documents.
I probably read more than Ernie has. And
Having been through this grievance process with you, please read the documents.
Okay. All right. Well, we are
Thank
going
you.
to.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to us. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate your, you are trying to progress this, and you
And
pulled
if it
together
can,
information. The select board's going to see that. The BCA is going to be involved because now we've appealed to them. So ultimately, hopefully all this information will assist getting to a timely and fair decision.
yes, absolutely. That is the goal. And I've said that many times to Tony that it should never have been a problem today. It should have been resolved in 2004, 2007, whenever it all surfaced and became known to this office back then. So it's going to get done now. And I'm glad with whatever the decision is. I just look forward to getting it done and fixing whatever needs to be fixed. And it just worries me in one way that we can't fix yours because if we do, according to what we believe, and it would change the line. And so that started when we, as I said, had the previous assessor here. But we're on it. I think it's going to get resolved, and we'll look forward to that. So thank you all for being here, and we're going to move on to our next item. So Ernie, I think the 28th is the meeting of the select board.
Okay.
We'll look forward to hearing back from the select board. They're setting agendas tomorrow, so we'll likely hear from them after that about where they're placing this topic on which meeting agenda. So, okay. Item 7A is discussing, we added this, Ernie, to the E&Os from the grand list. I just wanted to report to you that I thought we had two. I am now, after talking with our district advisor, aware that we only have one because the current use withdrawal of all the acres out of current use by one of the property owners is not something that needs select board approval because the assessment isn't changing in the grand list. The current use is simply being taken out of it, and it's going to be a full valued parcel. So that will generate a revised tax bill, and that is the office, finance office will be getting some paperwork to back up that. So they can make that change. But we do have one that occurred, and it's a small error and omission, and I've given you a copy of the memo there so that I'll just get rid of request number 2. I was waiting to see if possibly another person would come forward with a question about their tax bill or their assessment that we would need to put forth to the select board in order to change something in the grand list. And to this moment, I have nothing else to put on the memo. So that's what we have. Let's see. This, by the way, this one item did get changed, but then the current use records came in, and with the quickness in which those records got processed to get our grand list done, or the abstract done. I thought that their numbers were correct when in fact our number was correct, and I should have changed theirs to agree with ours, but I changed ours to agree to theirs.
Okay.
So that was the error. We'll get through that. So unless we hear something more today, this will get into the select board for being on their meeting, and it's a pretty straightforward errors and omission request, hopefully.
Yep.
All right, then item number 8 is open meeting law. I put this on here for discussion. As you and I know, there's been questioned whether or not we should have recorded the hearings, the grievance hearings that we held back on the 25th of July, according to the new open meeting law. It was not my understanding that something where we were taking information, we were not making
not
any
mine either,
decision.
so.
There was nothing binding about him, that we needed to record those meetings. It's not specific in the new open meeting law that says Lister grievance hearings will be recorded. It just says our regular meetings will be recorded, which we've been doing, and we've been complying with it. So, to keep things.
Has PBNR or, has whoever it is you talked to had anything to say about the advice, given any advice about this?
No, they have not. They've asked me to refer to VLCT because VLCT seems to give, the most guidance on the open meeting law. But
Yeah, but they're a part of the government. VLCT is a private organization.
it's a member-owned organization, and we're a member of it as a town of Norwich.
Right, but they don't have legal authority compared to what the state says.
But PBNR did not create the open meeting law or any changes to it. So VLCT is quick
No, but
to.
they should know, they should be able to answer about grievances and things that have to do with valuations of properties. And this is something that has to do with valuation of properties, because if you don't do it right, you're not, if your grievance process has a flaw in it, that's going to affect the whole valuation process. I mean, they should have something that to clarify from their point of view, because that's basically who we.
PVNR, Property Valuation and Review, who we work with heavily, would not give us any kind of opinion on complying with the open meeting law.
No,
they would tell us
can't
to
do
go
that.
to our
They
town
have-
council.
Right, they have to tell us, because they are a legal authority on the issues related to, like I said, it is related to what they're talking. The open meeting law, as it applies to grievances and anything else like that, but particularly grievances, that's what matters, because it now has to matter, okay? And they should be able to advise too. The LCT is not a part of the state.
Right,
Okay?
that's correct.
And therefore, they don't have the authority. They're not lawyers, and they're not part of the state.
There is a legal arm to VLCT.
Right, has the legal arm spoken to us?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And it's not, like I said, could you point us to the words in the open meeting law that says
Right.
we have to do that, and there aren't any.
and again, so there is actually an ambiguity.
Yes, and so they say that we have to record our meetings,
Yes.
which we're doing, but it doesn't discuss grievance hearings,
It's
which is,
a grievance hearing a meeting.
right, that's the question.
And there is no answer to that yet.
Right, that's what my understanding is. So
Yes.
to this concern that's gotten brought up, I would say to you that going forward,
I mean,
we will record any grievance hearings, right?
Right,
So,
right, that's not a big deal. I mean, I have no problem with that, but the point is that, anyone who's going to sort of raise the specter of us having violated really should have a clear law on their hands, not just their own opinion.
that's right. Right. And so we've done what we're supposed to do in recording our meetings, which we've done 3 times now for everything that we've had to do. But
Right.
for a grievance hearing where we're sitting and listening, barely asking any questions, it did not seem like that was part of that. So anyway, we beat it to death. We talked it over. We will, going forward until we hear concrete evidence either way, we'll just plan to have, if we have any grievances, we will record them. And I'm guessing the BCA and the BOA are going to be doing that as well. even though their decisions are not made in those meetings.
I know, I can have to wait to see how they deal with it.
Well, that's gonna have to be dealt with through the,
Because they are actually a quasi judicial body. Meaning they have to actually, they're like, well, it's like anything that you appeal through.
yes, that's true. So therefore, the hearing is getting recorded as the minutes are, also.
Minutes have always been recorded.
Well, produced. Minutes have been given out, yes, that part has not been questioned. So with that, I think the decision we've made and agree upon is we'll just record everything.
Yes.
Until we have the comfort to know that something like a grievance hearing isn't necessary, so. We'll do that. Okay, so that's the cure to any concern of the listers, recordings for meetings and stuff. Okay, with that, we could move on to number 9, which is the approval of lister draft minutes. As you know, Ernie, we had planned to approve July 3rd, the last meeting, and then we forgot to do it. So I noted that in our July 25th meeting notes, so we can look over those 2 sets of minutes today. We can do approvals of the July 3rd and the July 25th minutes.
Okay.
If they look good to you.
I'm happy.
Okay,
So should we want to do each one separately, or do we have to make a motion just to approve?
I think we could lump them together if we so choose. If there's no amendments, no changes that we're gonna make, okay.
HRC files.
So those are the 2 out there. We can lump them together in a motion.
So I want to make a motion to approve the minutes of the July 23rd, 2024 meeting.
July 3rd,
What did I just say?
23rd,
I meant the 3rd.
okay?
And then also the July 25th, 2024 meeting.
Okay. So you moved it. I will second that motion. Any discussion?
Nope.
None with me either. How do you vote?
Aye.
I vote aye as well, so it's unanimous. And that is that. With that said, I think we're at a point of adjourning. And we'll have our deliberative session afterwards. So with that,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn by Ernie. And I will second that.
Aye.
And all in favor? Aye, I'm unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right, and gentlemen, thank you again for being here. We're going to end the meeting.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice day. Thank you for your listening and focusing on this very pressing matter for our families.
Yes, you're very welcome. We'll talk soon.